Good evening, my little creatures of the night. Mr. Wendigo back again, and boy, have I got a tale that'll leave you swamped in terror tonight. The Florida Everglades, river of grass, 1.5 million acres of sawgrass marshes, mangrove forests, and water so dark you can't see what's swimming 2 feet under your boat. Where pythons the size of telephone poles hunt wild hogs, where gators outnumber people 10 to 1, and where the heat doesn't just press down on you, it crawls inside your lungs and makes a home. The Seminole and Miccosukee peoples have known for generations you don't mess with the balance out there. You don't take what the swamp doesn't offer. You don't play God with things that have teeth. Riley Navarro runs airboat tours to the backcountry. She knows every channel, every gator hole, every place the tourists love to point their cameras. But today, something's different. The birds have gone quiet, the water moves wrong, and when corporate science decides nature needs improvement, the Everglades is about to teach a lesson in blood. This is your late night creature feature. When the swamp goes silent, it's because something new is hunting. Before we begin, where are you listening from tonight? Drop a comment. I like knowing who's out there in the dark with me. Now then, let's talk about what happens when you teach predators to evolve. Something is happening to the wildlife in the Everglades. Chapter 1, Tracks in the Mud. The tarpon should have run. Instead, Tommy Havers watched his line go tight and then dead, like he'd hooked a cinder block. "Come on, girl," he muttered. "Give me something." The backwater lane around them was still as glass. Early morning fog hung low over the dark water, thick enough to blur the mangroves into gray shapes. Mosquitoes whined around his neck. Somewhere out in the haze, an osprey screamed. But his line didn't sing. It just pulled straight down. In the bow of the skiff, Wes Dalton frowned at the water. He'd been stripping line for his own cast, but now he let it rest in loose coils at his feet. "That's not a tarpon," Wes said. Tommy snorted. "What, you feel it with your psychic guide powers?" "I feel it with my eyes, idiot," Wes said. "Tarpon jump. They don't act like anchors." The fly rod bowed. Whatever was on the other end started moving, slow and heavy, dragging the skiff sideways toward a thin cut in the mangroves. Tommy dug his heels against the deck. "It's big, though." "Let it go," Wes said. "We're too far back in here already." "You always bitch this much when I'm hooked up?" Wes didn't answer. He stepped up to the edge of the bow and peered down. The water was dark, but clear enough that you could usually see a flash of silver or the pale twist of a rolling tarpon. He saw nothing, just a shape, long and gray, sliding deeper under the boat. Wes squinted. "What the hell?" The shape angled, passed under them, then rose. For a moment he thought it was a big python, fat from pigs or birds. They saw pythons now. Everybody did. Sometimes Tommy joked that one day they'd hook a snake instead of a fish. This one wasn't a joke. It came up just under the surface, close enough that Wes could make out the skin. Not smooth, not round. The body was ridged, like a centipede. It flexed, and something along the sides flared out. "They're not supposed to do that," Wes said. "What?" "Ribs don't move like that." The bones along the snake's sides had opened, pushing out and down like white fingers. Each rib ended in a sharp tip. They dug into the mud at the bottom, and the whole thing used them to walk. The line in Tommy's hands went slack. Wes stumbled back a step. "Cut the line. Tommy, cut the line." "Relax." Tommy started stripping in. Probably wrapped a stump. The skiff bumped. Once, twice, something heavy brushed the hull. Wes grabbed the anchor rope with one hand and slipped his knife free with the other. Suction gnawed at the bottom of the boat, like the mud itself was trying to hold them. "Cut it," Wes snapped. The snake's head surfaced beside the bow. It was wrong. too broad. The jaw muscles bulged, and the eyes sat farther forward than they should, giving it a straight-on stare. Water rolled off thick, pale scales. The mouth opened slightly, tasting the air. Then the ribs flared again, stabbing into the side of the skiff. The boat jerked sideways. Tommy lost his balance and went to one knee. His rod clattered against the deck. Okay, what the foo? The snake surged up. It wasn't huge by python standards, maybe 10 feet, 12. But the way it moved made Wes's brain skip. It didn't coil, it climbed. The ribs stabbed into the gunwale, hauling the body over the edge like a centipede crawling onto a plate. "Tommy!" Wes shouted. Tommy grabbed the cooler for balance and kicked at the thing. His boot met bone and scale. The snake's head whipped around and latched onto his calf. He screamed. Wes moved without thinking. He lunged forward, jammed his knife at the snake's neck. The blade hit bone and skittered. The ribs punched into Tommy's leg now, pinning him in place. Blood ran down his shin in thin, dark ropes. The snake yanked. Tommy's fingers slipped from the cooler handle. Half his body went over the side. Wes grabbed his life vest and pulled. For a second he thought he had him. Then something else hit the hull from behind. The skiff rocked hard. Wes slammed into the casting deck. His knife flew from his hand and vanished into the water. He rolled over in time to see a head rise out of the dark. "Gator," he thought. Instinct. You see that broad snout and you know. Except this snout looked stretched. The jaw hinges sat farther back, like somebody had pulled the skull like taffy. When it opened its mouth, it opened too wide. Rows of teeth showed all the way to the back. The eyes burned red, not the dull red reflection of a flashlight. These glowed on their own, a steady coal light. Tommy saw it too. He had a second to look back over his shoulder, half in the water, python ribs sunk deep into his leg. "Wes." The gator lunged. Water exploded around them. The jaws closed around Tommy's chest and shoulder. Ribs popped like dry sticks snapping underfoot. The sound was wet and final. Tommy's scream cut off as teeth punched through his lung. Blood sprayed across the deck in hot ropes. The gator shook once, hard, and Tommy's body folded in ways bodies don't fold. His spine cracked. The snake went with him, still attached, dragged under by the gator's weight. Bubbles rolled up thick and red. Wes froze. The boat drifted in the spreading stain. The fog closed in again, swallowing the ripples. He whispered Tommy's name once. No answer. He stumbled to the console, hands shaking, reaching for the radio. Something bumped the boat again, a slow shove that turned the bow toward the narrow cut in the mangroves. He looked down. More shapes moved under the surface now. Not one, several, long bodies with ribs flaring like the sides of a bellows, pushing against the mud. They were hurting the boat. Wes's throat went dry. He reached for the throttle. A head rose right beside his hand. Another snake, or maybe the same. It didn't matter. It came over the side faster than he could pull back. The ribs slammed into his thighs and gut. Points like sharpened broom handles punched through his waders, through skin, through muscle. His breath went out of him in a hoarse grunt. The pain was white-hot and immediate. He felt the bone tips scrape his pelvis, felt them dig deeper with every heartbeat. Blood soaked through his pants, ran down his legs in warm streams. He tried to scream, but nothing came out, just a wet gurgle as the snake pulled. Something underneath pushed the hull, guiding them toward a tighter channel where the mangrove roots hung low. As Wes went over, he saw it. More red eyes in the water, more broad heads, circling. The last thing he felt was his chest folding inward as something clamped down and shook. The skiff drifted out of the fog an hour later, empty, bumping gently against a mat of hyacinth. A cheap action camera blinked red on the bow, still recording. I was already on my second bad cup of coffee when the tourist showed up. Sugar Marina isn't much to look at. Little snack shack with fading beer logos, sun-blasted dock with gaps in the planks, a crooked sign with my last name painted in green, Navarro Everglades Tours. The airboat sat where it always did, tied off at the end of the dock, aluminum hull shining dull in the morning sun. I watched the rental SUV crunch over the show lot, took another sip, tried not to think about how quiet the birds had been at dawn. 4 of them tumbled out, 2 middle-aged, 1 teen, and a skinny white guy with a camera rig strapped to his chest like it was part of his skeleton. The dad stretched, looked around, and whistled. "Damn, thought you were joking about out in the middle of nowhere." "That's the charm," I said. I lifted a hand. "You guys Navarro's 10 o'clock? The skinny guy pointed a thumb at his chest. "That's us. Mars Ellery. This is my crew for the day." His real name was probably something like Mark, but he said Mars, like it was a brand. The camera on his harness had a fuzzy mic on top and more stickers than my tackle box. The mom gave me a quick, polite smile. "I'm Claire. This is my husband, Greg, and our daughter Jenna." Jenna had earbuds already in, hood up despite the heat. She glanced at the swamp and then back at her phone. "Life jackets are mandatory," I said. "So is listening when I tell you to sit down and shut up. We good?" Greg laughed. "You run a tight ship." "Boat," I said. "And yeah, I like all my customers to come back with the same number of limbs they left with." Mars panned the camera across the water. "Love that. Can you say that again? But, like, looking at the boat?" I stared at him. He grinned. "Kidding, mostly." "Load in," I said. "Sun's only getting worse." They shuffled down the dock. Mars kept filming. I did the usual safety spiel while they stepped onto the airboat one by one. Where to hold on, what not to touch, what to do if we hit a log. What to do if they drop their phones in the water. Answer, say goodbye. Jenna finally yanked one earbud out. "Are there alligators?" "Yeah," I said. "They're smaller this time of year. We sent the big ones to Disney for summer work." She snorted. One quick laugh she tried to swallow back. Claire looked relieved. Mars pointed the camera at me. "So, Riley, how long you been doing this?" "Too long," I said. "Sit down." He did. At least he listened. I untied the boat, swung the bow away from the dock, and stepped over the side. The engine loomed behind me, big fan cage throwing a thin shadow. I slid into the driver's seat, cranked the motor, and felt the vibration run through the hull. We skimmed out into the channel, picking up speed, wind hitting my face, hat brim pressing down. The marina shrank behind us. The world narrowed to water, sawgrass, and a band of sky. Out here, you can almost forget about people. On good days, that's the best part of the job. Today didn't feel like a good day. The birds were wrong. I didn't realize how much that bothered me until we'd been running 10 minutes without a single heron lifting off or a single egret complaining. No red-shouldered hawk scream. No woodpecker rattle from the cypress stands. Just the engine and the slap of water. I cut speed to idle and turned us into a side slough. The motor dropped to a grumble. The boat drifted. "Why are we slowing?" Greg asked. "Photo op," I said. "Plus, if I run the fan non-stop, your daughter's face is going to peel off." Jenna rolled her eyes, but she did set her phone down. Mars leaned forward. "We good to stand?" "Yeah, just keep 3 points of contact," I said. "And don't lean over the side. Gators like free samples." He braced a knee and got some shots over my shoulder. Man, this is unreal. My viewers are going to eat this up. "What do you film?" Claire asked. "Wildlife, travel, weird local stuff, Mars in the wild." She nodded like she'd heard of it. She probably hadn't. I scanned the banks. The sawgrass here grew tall and thick, forming walls on either side. Patches of open water showed scum and floating islands of hyacinth, mangrove roots twisted out of darker pools. Black and slick. There should have been a pile of turtles on that log to the right. There usually was. Today it sat bare and wet. My stomach tightened. "Riley," Mars said, "you seeing something?" "Just paying attention," I said. "This time of year, boars like to move through here. I'd rather not bounce off one at 30 miles an hour." "Do we get to see hogs?" Greg asked. "Jenna loves pigs." "Wild hogs will rip your calf off if you let them," I said. "Not the petting zoo kind." He laughed, then realized I wasn't kidding. Mars panned along the bank. His camera paused. "What's that?" I followed his lens. Something white lay tangled in the reeds near the waterline. I nudged the throttle, eased us closer. It was a bird. Heron, by the look of it. Long neck bent, wings out just enough to show broken feathers. The body was still mostly intact, but the chest had been opened. Not picked like a vulture would do it, torn. The ribs stuck out in a ragged fan. Jenna made a face. Gross. Claire put a hand on her shoulder. "Don't look, baby." Mars whispered into the mic out of habit. "Looks like we got an early kill site here in the Florida Everglades." "Hey," I said. "No narration unless you're paying me a cut." He held up his free hand. "Sorry. Just instincts." I stared at the wound. Something about it bothered me. The ribs didn't just jut out. Some of them were cracked lower down, like they'd been crushed inward first and then pulled. There were small puncture marks around the chest, evenly spaced. "Gator do that?" Greg asked. "No," I said. "Gators usually take more, and they don't leave birds on the bank like that." "What then?" "I don't know," I said. "Could be hogs. Could be a sick cat. Could be some idiot with a dog. We're moving on." I bumped the throttle. The boat slid away, leaving the dead heron to its flies. We ran another 20 minutes, cutting through narrow trails only locals use. I tried to shake off the feeling in my chest. The glades have ugly moments. Animals die. You see it all. I'd seen worse. But the silence stuck. We turned into an open pond, a wide circular area ringed by cypress knees. This was one of my usual spots. Decent chance at a few gator heads, some birds, maybe a big turtle if we were lucky. We were barely in the clearing before Mars said, "Whoa." The water ahead of us boiled. Hundreds of small fish moved near the surface in a tight, swirling mass, not schooling like normal. This looked like a whirlpool, spinning in one tight ring, staying in one place. The fish brushed against each other, frantic, but didn't break formation. "Is that normal?" Claire asked. "No," I said. The motor noise must have reached them. The mass shifted, slid away across the pond in one smooth spiral, like it was listening to something. Jenna leaned over the side for a closer look. "Back," I said, sharper than I meant to. "Now." She flinched and sat. Mars lowered his camera. "Okay, even I know that's weird." "Yeah," I said. "I don't like it." So we moved on. By the time we reached the outer flats, the sun was higher and my shirt stuck to my back with sweat. I took us along a line of willow and buttonbush, then cut speed again. Egrets usually hunted this stretch. Airboats from the other outfit sometimes drifted by. Today, nothing. We were alone. I kept that thought to myself. "Riley," Mars said finally, voice softer. "You're tense. Is this, like, hurricane weather, or—" "I've been doing this long enough to know when the swamp is in a mood," I said. "Today, it's in a mood." He smirked. "Can you say that again, but—" Something hit the cage behind me. Not a log, not a branch. The whole boat shuddered. A thump ran up through the seat, into my spine. The fan rattled in its cage. "Everybody stay seated," I snapped. "Hands inside." "What was that?" Claire grabbed Jenna's arm. I killed the throttle. The engine dropped to idle, then cut completely. The world rushed in. Heat, bugs, the faint rustle of grass. Then something slid off the back of the cage with a slow, dragging scrape. Metal complained. Mars had the camera up instantly. Tell me that was a gator. Please say gator. Viewers love gators. I stood halfway from the driver's seat, one hand on the rail, and looked up. At first I thought a branch had fallen. There was a long gray shape tangled in the top of the cage, draped over the curve. It hung there, not moving. Then the tail twitched. "Is that a snake?" Greg asked. "Yeah," I said. "Everybody stay very still." It shifted. The body uncoiled some, heavy segments sliding across the metal with a dry hiss. The snake was thick, bigger than the usual pythons we saw, but the shape was off. The body didn't look round. It looked faceted, like someone had pressed their fingers into the sides all the way down. The head rolled into view over the front of the cage. It stared down at us upside down, mouth slightly open. Jenna whimpered. "Nope, no. I hate this. I hate snakes." "You're okay," Claire said. "Just don't move." The snake's ribs flared. I watched it happen. White points pushed out along the body, one after another, until there were 2 rows of bones sticking out like spider legs. They scraped against the metal cage, found purchase, then dug in. "What the hell?" Mars whispered. The snake pulled itself farther over the front, ribs clacking on steel, head lowering toward us. It didn't dangle like a rope. It walked itself down the cage. I grabbed the long aluminum pole we used to push off logs and snags. "Everybody down," I said. "Hands on the floor, heads low. Don't touch the rails." Greg didn't hear me, or he heard me and didn't process it. His eyes were locked on the snake, mouth open. The snake dropped the last couple feet. It landed across the bow with a heavy thump, half its body still gripping the cage. Bone points clacked on metal, scratched lines in the deck. Then it struck. It hit Greg mid-thigh. He screamed as the jaws latched on, teeth punching through denim and skin. The ribs stabbed down, through his other leg, into the deck, pinning him. Claire lunged toward him. I caught her shoulder with my free hand and yanked her back. "Don't," I snapped. "You'll get grabbed too." "Let him go," she screamed at the snake like it understood English. Jenna shrieked. Mars swore under his breath, voice shaking, camera pointed dead at the thing. "This is insane," he whispered. "This is insane." The snake started to pull. It didn't wrap him. It hauled him by the leg, ribs digging deeper for leverage. His blood ran around the bone points, bright on aluminum. I stepped forward and swung the pole. The tip cracked against the snake's head. Once, twice. Bone gave a little. The snake hissed, a wet, high sound, and jerked its eyes toward me. They weren't right either. Pupil shape was off, too round. The lids blinked sideways. I hit it again, harder. The pole bent a little under the impact. The snake's jaws loosened just enough that Greg wrenched his leg free. Skin tore. He screamed again and fell backward, clutching his thigh. The ribs stayed in the deck. They punched through like nails, bone tips buried. The snake recoiled, half on the cage, half on the bow, body writhing. I jammed the pole under its neck and shoved, trying to lever it overboard. "Get back," I barked. Mars grabbed Greg under the shoulders and dragged him toward the center of the boat, leaving a smear of blood. Claire went with them, sobbing. Jenna curled against the side, hands over her ears. The pole slipped. The snake's head twisted. It lunged at me this time. I jerked back. Teeth snapped shut inches from my boot. Adrenaline burned hot in my chest. My hands were steady in that freak way they get when the worst stuff happens. I took one more step back, gave myself room, and swung the pole like a bat. The aluminum rang. I felt the shock all the way up my arms, into my shoulders. The snake's skull cracked. I saw it, a fracture line running back from one eye, the head jerked to the side, tongue lolling for a second. I didn't stop hitting it until the body went slack and the ribs slowly retracted, sliding back under the skin. Breathing hard, I shoved the limp weight off the deck with the end of the pole. It splashed into the water, sank, then drifted just under the surface, pale shape sliding away beneath the boat. I stood there, sweat running into my eyes, hands white on the pole. The airboat rocked gently in the wake of nothing. Behind me, someone was crying. Someone else was cussing under their breath, the smell of blood and hot metal mixed with swamp rot. "Is everyone alive?" I asked. My voice sounded flat. Greg lay on his back, teeth clenched, both hands clamped over his leg, blood seeped through his fingers. Jenna stared at him, face gray. "Dad?" Claire shook herself and dropped to her knees beside him. "He needs a hospital. He needs a hospital right now." "I know," I said. "Mars?" "Yeah." His voice shook. The camera on his chest was still pointed at me. "I'm good. I mean, I'm not good, but I'm not bad." "Put pressure," I said. "Use towels. Whatever you've got. Keep him from bleeding out." "Is that thing really dead?" Jenna asked. "For now," I said. "Sit with your dad." I stepped back up into the driver's seat and grabbed the radio mic. "Sugar Base, this is Navarro 1, I said. "We've got a serious injury out on Trail 9. Repeating, serious injury. Need EMS at the dock and somebody to call FWC. We just killed a python that wasn't normal." Static hissed back at me. I tried again. "Sugar Base, Navarro 1, you hearing this?" Nothing. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. "The radio busted?" Mars asked. "It was fine 20 minutes ago," I said. I cycled channels, tried the park ranger frequency, then the county. Silence. Either I was having the worst luck of the month, or something else was wrong. I looked out over the sawgrass. Heat shimmered above it. A dragonfly hovered, then was gone. "We going back?" Claire asked. Her voice climbed high. "Riley, we need to go back. He's going to lose his leg." "We're going," I said. "Everybody hold on. It's going to be rough." I fired the engine. The fan roared to life. The boat lurched as I pushed the throttle forward. We carved a hard line back through the channel, hull slapping, water spraying. I took us on a more direct path, over shallower runs I usually avoided with tourists. Screw it. I wasn't losing a guy out here. Behind me, Greg groaned with each hit. Claire murmured stupid, hopeful lies in his ear. Jenna kept whispering, "It's okay, it's okay," like repetition could make it true. Mars stayed quiet. I caught glimpses of him in the convex mirror. Face pale, eyes wide, camera still pointed outward. Some habits don't die, even when people almost do. The closer we got to the marina, the tighter something coiled in my chest. I couldn't shake the feeling of those ribs punching through the deck, the feeling of its eyes on me. Snakes didn't move like that. Snakes didn't have ribs that walked. We broke out of the trails into the open run to the dock. The little cluster of buildings and trucks came into view. There was a dark SUV parked crooked near my shack. Black windows, no logo. I didn't like that either. I drove straight in, let the boat glide the last few feet, and jumped up to tie off. As soon as we bumped the dock, I shouted at nobody in particular. "I need an ambulance now," I yelled. "Snake bite and heavy bleeding." No answer, no dockhand. The snack shack door stood open, but nobody leaned in the frame with a soda like usual. Two people stepped out from behind the SUV instead. One was a woman in a light gray blouse and dark slacks, hair pulled back in a tight knot despite the humidity, mid-40s, sharp eyes that missed nothing. The other was a man in a polo shirt and tactical pants, sunglasses, the kind of jaw that looked breakable if you knew how. The woman took in the scene on the boat in one pass. Blood, pale faces, camera harness, and her mouth tightened. "Miss Navarro?" she called. "Who's asking?" I shot back, already dragging the cooler lid off to grab the old first aid kit. She stepped closer, stopping just short of the blood drip reaching the dock boards. "I'm Dr. Naomi Brackett," she said. "We're with Evergenics Agriculture. We need to speak with you about a wildlife matter." "We need a hospital," I said. "You can talk later." Her gaze flicked to Mars's camera. "We will. But first, I'm going to need any recordings you made out there, and I'm going to need you to tell me exactly what that snake looked like." I met her eyes. She already knew. That was the worst part. Something strange was happening to the animals out here, and this woman looked like she'd been waiting for it. Chapter 2, The Night Feeds Different Out Here. The hospital took Greg, the sheriff took statements, and Evergenics took everything else. Mars's footage, my snake carcass, half my morning. By late afternoon, the marina was empty again. The sheriff cruisers rolled out. The ambulance dust settled. The Evergenics SUV was still there, engine ticking as it cooled. "Doctor." Brackett paced near it, phone pressed to her ear, low voice tight like she was trying not to yell. I didn't care. I just wanted the swamp to feel normal again. It didn't. Birds were still quiet. Wind barely moved the sawgrass. The water near my dock rippled once, like something big passed under it. Mars stood beside me, arms crossed, cameraless chest looking naked. "They took all of it," he said. "Yep. That was my best footage all month." I shot him a look. He held up his hands. "I mean, also a man lost half a leg, obviously. But, they acted like they were waiting for this." "Evergenics doesn't get involved unless someone's messing with the sugar fields," I said. "They damn sure don't send a scientist to inspect a snake attack." "So what are they actually doing out here?" "Nothing legal." Before he could answer, the man in the polo and tactical pants walked toward us. He moved like law enforcement, but with none of the courtesy. "Miss Navarro," he said. "Dr. Brackett would like a word." "No," I said. "I'm done for the day." He didn't nod, didn't step aside. He just pointed to the SUV like I was a kid refusing dinner. I stepped past him anyway. Mars followed. Brackett hung up her call and exhaled hard. "Riley, I need you to answer some questions." "I need my customers to stop bleeding out on my boat," I said. "That's being handled," she said. "But this is bigger." Mars jumped in. That snake wasn't normal. It had bones that moved, like legs. I shot him a look. He ignored it. Brackett looked between us. "Describe exactly what you saw." "You first," I said. "Why is your company here?" Her jaw flexed once. "Fine. We conduct agricultural resilience studies, disease resistance, genetic fortification, mostly on livestock and insects, not pythons." "But you're real interested in pythons today," I said. "Because something out there isn't behaving normally," she said, lowering her voice. "And if it's connected to one of our discontinued research programs, we need to contain it." Mars blinked. "Contain?" "Yeah," I said. "That's scientist code for 'this is bad.'" Before Brackett could answer, her radio chirped. The security guy stepped back, listening. He nodded to her. "2 fishermen. Bodies found upriver. Or what's left of them. Sheriff wants us to confirm." Brackett closed her eyes for half a second, then opened them. "We need to go," she said. I stepped in front of her. "No, you don't. You're not law enforcement." "We have jurisdiction over our research materials," she said. And if one of our programs created something dangerous, you're gonna hide it, I said, not fix it. Mars swallowed. Riley, maybe we should go see. We aren't going anywhere with them, I said. Racket studied my face. You really think staying out of this will help? Something killed a man on your boat, and from what the sheriff described upriver, whatever's in the water is escalating. The tactical guy rested a hand on his sidearm. It wasn't a threat. It was a reminder. They were going with or without us. Mars looked at me, hopeful, curious, stupid. Fine, I said. I'll take my own boat. Racket shook her head. We're not splitting up. I don't work for you. No, she said, but you know this swamp. We don't. That part was true. If they went in alone, they'd disappear. I sighed. Give me 10 minutes to fuel up. 10 minutes later, we were back on the water. Me at the helm, Mars on the bench seat, Racket and her hired mannequin sitting stiff behind us. We cut hard northeast, into the narrower guts, where the water got shallow and the banks tightened. Cypress stumps poked through like rotten teeth. Airboat scars lined the mud, old and new. Mars leaned forward. Did your radio ever come back online? No. That normal? No. The water to our right bulged once, like something huge rolled under it. I kept driving. Racket studied the banks, jaw tight. How often do you see pythons this far out? Often enough, I said, but not ones that climb like spiders. She winced. Did you see any discoloration on the scales? Anything unusual about the jaw, provided the skull hadn't been compromised? You want me to do your autopsy for you? I want to know how many traits it showed. I slowed the boat. Traits from what? She hesitated. Evergenics ran adaptive trials 2 years ago, she said, on invasive species. Python trials, I said. Yes? What kind of trials? She didn't answer. The tactical guy did. Survival trials, for harsh environments. I laughed once. You made super snakes. Racket glared at him. They weren't supposed to survive release. They were supposed to self-terminate. Something failed. Failed how? Mars asked. But Brackett wasn't looking at him anymore. She was looking ahead. The channel opened up into a backwater pool. The cypress ring around it was tall and dense. An old John boat floated near the far bank, half submerged. The skiff I recognized immediately. Tommy Havers's boat. My stomach dropped. I killed the engine. Stay in the boat, I said. No one steps out. Mars already had his phone out, filming. Jesus, he whispered. Tommy's skiff sat crooked, bow high, stern low. Blood smeared the deck in long streaks. Something had punctured the aluminum near the transom. Bone, probably, or teeth. I guided us closer, slow and careful. The bodies weren't in the boat. They were on the bank. Wes Dalton lay half in the water, half in the mud. His chest was open, torn in a clean arc. Ribs cracked back like someone pried them with tools. His legs were gone from the knee down. What was left looked chewed. Tommy was worse. Half his torso was missing. The bite radius didn't match anything native. Too wide, too deep. Racket climbed to her feet despite my order. Don't. She ignored me and stepped onto the bow rail. Tactical man shadowed her. Mars stayed back, shaking. Riley, what did this? I scanned the water, slow and steady. The pond was still, too still. No gator does this, I said. Not even a big one. Brackett crouched by Tommy's remains, eyes darting across the wounds. Clean tears, crushing force, serrated pressure points. This matches 2 different specimens. 2? Mars whispered. I nodded. A snake dragged them. A gator finished them. Brackett shook her head. No, not quite. What then? She didn't look up. These wounds weren't made by two animals. They were made by one. The sawgrass behind us rustled. Slow, heavy, purposeful. I stood, hand gripping the push-pole tight. "Mars," I said. "Put the camera down." He didn't. The grass parted. A hog stepped out. A big one, 200 pounds. Easy. But its head was wrong. Bone plates covered half the snout, like a natural shield. One tusk curved back at a sharp angle, almost hooking its own face. The other was broken. Its eyes were small and black and mean. Its hide twitched in little pulses, like something moved underneath. Mars whispered, "Is that armor?" Racket backed toward the water. "Hold still." The hog lowered its head. I grabbed the throttle. Brace. The hog charged. I fired the engine at full. The airboat spun, fan kicking up water and mud. The hog slammed into the hull just behind Mars. The boat lurched sideways, almost tipping. Mars screamed as the impact rattled the deck. "Hold on," I shouted. The hog backed up, tusks scraping metal. It hit us again, harder, trying to roll the boat. Racket grabbed the rail. "It shouldn't be this coordinated." "It's thinking," I said. "That's the problem." The hog braced for another run. I hit the throttle again, spun us out of the pocket, and punched the boat across the shallow channel. The hull carved through reeds. Mud splashed up onto the deck. Something big moved in the water behind us. Something that kept pace. "Mars!" I shouted. "Which way's it coming?" He looked back and froze. A long shape glided just under the surface, ribs flaring in pale spikes, moving fast. "Left side!" he yelled. I cut right. The snake missed the hull by inches, ribs skimming the metal with a scraping hiss. The hog hit the bank hard, trying to chase us, squealing in frustration. We burst out into a wider run, engine screaming. Mars slumped back, shaking. That wasn't normal. That wasn't any kind of normal. Racket steadied herself. "They're adapting, faster than expected." "Expected?" I barked. "You knew this could happen." She pinched the bridge of her nose. The trials showed trait drift. We terminated the program, but someone must have released the specimens instead of destroying them. "And now they're breeding," I said. Mars looked between us. "What do we do?" I kept the boat pointed west. The sky started to dim. Clouds thickened. "We find someone who knows these waters better than me," I said. "Someone who's been seeing weird long before today." "Who?" Mars asked. I didn't take my eyes off the water. "Eddie Moran," I said. "Most folks call him Skunk. He lives off-grid in a patch nobody bothers. If anything's been moving out here, he's seen it." Brackett frowned. "Is he reliable?" "No," I said. "But he's alive, which means he knows something." Behind us, something surfaced once in the distance. A ripple, a low shape, maybe a gator, maybe not. Mars swallowed. "What if he's dead already?" I pushed the throttle harder. Then we're next. Chapter 3. The Breeding Grounds. Skunk's place sat deep in the part of the glades people don't talk about. No trail showed on GPS. No ranger boats patrolled there. The closest law enforcement marker was a half-rotted sign 2 miles west that said no trespassing and lied about who put it there. I cut the engine and let the airboat drift the last 100 yards. Skunk's shack sat on stilts over a patch of mud and floating hyacinth, rusted sheet metal for walls, blue tarp roof, solar panel cracked down the middle, no smoke, no sound. Mars whispered, "Are we sure he's home?" "I'm not sure he's alive," I said, "but we'll find out." Brackett scanned the tree line. "If your friend has been observing these animals, I need his notes, his traps, anything he's collected." "You're getting ahead of yourself," I said. First we make sure he hasn't been turned into a chew toy. I grabbed the push pole and stepped onto the dock. The boards creaked under my boots. I motioned for Mars to stay low. He did, for once. The tactical guy kept one hand on his holster. Brackett kept her eyes moving, like she expected the swamp to open its mouth. I knocked on the shack door. Nothing. I knocked again. Louder. Still nothing. Mars pointed weakly at the doorframe. Riley. I followed his gaze. Deep gouges lined the wood, fresh, claw marks, but too long for a hog, too shallow for a gator, too straight for a cat, like something dragged bone across it multiple times. "Skunk," I called. "It's Navarro. You alive in there?" Something shifted inside. Not footsteps. Something dragging. I exchanged a look with Mars. I slid my knife from its sheath. Tactical guy moved up beside me, gun drawn. I pushed the door open. The inside was chaos. Shelves knocked over, jars broken, mud smeared across the floor. Piles of strange bones Skunk always collected were scattered like confetti. Then movement, fast, close. "Don't shoot," a voice rasped. A shape scrambled out from under the tipped-over table, hair wild, beard worse, soaked in swamp water and fear. Eddie Skunk Moran, alive, but barely. He blinked at the gun in tactical guy's hand. "Easy," I said. "He's human, mostly." Skunk staggered to his feet. "Riley Navarro knew you'd show up eventually, swamp and screaming all day." "What happened?" I asked. He wiped his face with a shaking hand. "Something big came to visit, sniffed around, slammed the walls. Didn't come in, though. Didn't light the fire. But it was close." "What was it?" Mars asked. Skunk fixed him with a look. "You got a death wish, boy?" Mars started to answer. I cut in. "Skunk, focus." He nodded and limped deeper inside. "You ain't seen what I've seen," he muttered. "Animals moving like they got the same brain, hogs working in packs, snakes climbing sideways like spiders, gators staring at you long after they should have gone under. Something's teaching them, or making them." Brackett stepped forward. "What exactly have you observed?" Skunk stopped and turned on her. "Who's the pencil?" "Dr. Brackett," I said. "She's with Evergenics." Skunk barked a laugh. "That's your problem right there. Damn crop meddlers." She straightened. "We didn't intend for." "You never do," Skunk said. "Then folks end up dead." He reached under a pile of shirts, pulled out something wrapped in a shop towel. He set it on the table. Bone. A python rib, but thicker than normal, and sharpened at the end like a natural spike. "This came off one of them that attacked last night," Skunk said. "I clipped it with the hatchet. Didn't slow the thing down. It climbed the roof with those ribs, dug right in." Brackett's face went pale. She touched the rib. "This is an adaptive outgrowth. They weren't supposed to develop these without—" "Without what?" I asked. She didn't answer. The tactical guy's radio crackled. He lifted it. "Go." Static. Then a voice. "Sheriff's office. We've got movement near the sugar field perimeter. Unknown animals. Multiple. Requesting all call backup at Sector 5. Sector 5. 3 miles from Skunk's place." Brackett looked at me. "We need to go." Skunk snorted. "You need to run." "What's in Sector 5? Mars asked. I holstered my knife. An old wetlands lab. Evergenics owned it before they shut it down. Skunk spat on the floor. "Place hums at night. Always has. I stay away from it." "Yeah," I said. "That's where your snakes came from." Brackett shook her head. "Not anymore. Not if they're breeding. The lab's a graveyard." "Then why something going back to it?" Mars said. Before anyone could answer, we heard it. A thud on the shack roof. then another, like something heavy walking overhead. Skunk whispered, "It followed you." The tactical guy drew his weapon. I grabbed Skunk's arm and pulled him toward the back wall. "Everyone quiet," I said. The thing on the roof moved again. Slow, careful, testing. Something long dragged across the metal sheets, bones scraping steel. Mars shakily lifted his phone. "Don't," I hissed. He lowered it. The thing shifted its weight. Panels creaked. Then we heard the breathing. Low, wet, long exhale through too many teeth. Skunk mouthed, "Gator." I shook my head. The footfalls weren't thuds. They were taps. Light, precise. Snake. A big one. The ribs punched through the metal. White spikes stabbed down between us, tearing open daylight strips in the roof. Dust rained. The whole shack groaned. "Back door!" I yelled. We rushed toward it. The python slammed down again, ribs punching deeper, tearing the tin in long strips. Mars stumbled. Skunk grabbed his shirt collar and yanked him upright. "Move, boy!" The tactical guy fired twice through the roof. Something above shrieked, high and furious. I kicked the back door open. We burst out onto the narrow wooden walkway behind the shack. Mangroves surrounded us, water knee-deep underneath. The walkway shuddered. The python dropped down behind us, half its body falling through the hole it tore, ribs clacking like knives on wood. "Go!" I shouted. We bolted down the walkway. The snake chased, ribs stabbing into the planks, pulling its body after us in jerky, violent lunges. Mars screamed, "It's fast!" "Don't look back!" I yelled. Skunk did. Ah, hell. "Riley, we got more." More shapes moved in the water. 3 dark gator forms, heads low, eyes glowing that same wrong red. The walkway ended in open swamp. Nowhere to go. "Jump to the right," I shouted. "Into the grass. Move." We leapt into a thick mat of sawgrass. Mud swallowed us to the thighs. Mars went under for a second and came up gagging. Skunk hissed, "Stay low. Don't splash." The snake hit the end of the walkway full force. Wood exploded into the water. The gators surged toward the noise, not toward us, distracted by the thrashing boards and falling debris. "Crawl," I said. "Head east. Slow." We moved through the grass, dragging ourselves inch by inch. Mosquitoes swarmed. Sweat ran into my eyes. Mars whispered curses between breaths. Behind us, the python shrieked again, frustrated, hunting. It slammed into the grass where we'd been seconds earlier. The ground trembled under its weight. "Riley," Mars whispered, "we're gonna die out here." "No," I said, "we're not." "How do you know?" "Because I know where we're going." Skunk nodded ahead. "Yeah, the old lab. High ground, concrete walls. Might still have power." Brackett whispered, "The breeding grounds." "Great," Mars muttered. "Perfect. Love that." We emerged from the grass 20 minutes later, covered in mud up to our necks. My legs burned. Mars looked like he'd seen a ghost. Skunk looked annoyed to still be alive. Ahead of us, through a break in the trees, the old Evergenics Wetlands lab sat on a concrete rise, a square, windowless bunker surrounded by half-sunken generators and broken fencing. A rusted sign leaned sideways. "Research Site 27. Authorized personnel only." Brackett stared at it with dread. "This is where it started," she said quietly. "No," Skunk said. "It started when y'all thought you could fix nature by messing with it." A low growl echoed through the clearing. Mars flinched. "Gator?" "No," I said. "Listen." The growl was layered, wet, deep, and above it, the clicking of ribs, multiple sets. Something moved in the lab, something big. Brackett exhaled. The Alpha. Alpha what? Mars whispered. Brackett swallowed. All of it. We stepped toward the door. The air smelled like rotten chemicals. A warm draft blew from inside, thick with humidity and something else. Fermented meat, maybe, or weeks-old blood. Skunk whispered, "Last chance to turn around." "No," I said. "We finished this." Mars wiped mud from his lens. Brackett steadied herself. Skunk lifted his hatchet. Tactical guy checked his last magazine. I pushed the lab door open. Inside was darkness. Wet floors, broken tanks, shattered glass, scrape marks on every wall. And in the center of the room, something huge moved. Slow, heavy, breathing just wrong enough to make your spine tighten. Something stepped into the faint beam of Mars's camera light. A head shaped like a gator skull, 4 python limbs spreading and bracing as it walked, hogbone plates covering the ribs, jaws lined with both gator and snake teeth moving together. The eyes glowed. Not red. White. Hungry. It looked at us and stepped closer. Skunk whispered what all of us were thinking. "Jesus Christ." Mars whispered, "We're dead." I whispered, "No." And the Alpha rushed us. Chapter 4. The Island of Teeth. The Alpha hit the concrete floor like a car crash. The impact shook dust from the rafters, rattled broken glass across the tiles, and sent a stink of rot and swamp air flooding toward us. "Move!" I yelled. The thing lunged. 4 python limbs slammed down, ribs stabbing through the concrete like it was wet clay. Its gator jaws snapped shut inches from Mars's backpack, teeth slicing a strap clean off. Mars stumbled back, dropping his phone. Skunk grabbed his collar and yanked him sideways. "Eyes up, boy! Don't freeze!" The tactical guy fired 3 rounds point blank. They hit. They didn't matter. The rounds punched into the bone plates along the Alpha's flank, sparking off ridges like he'd shot a truck bumper. The Alpha turned, not toward the guy shooting it, toward me. I sprinted right as the Alpha charged. The floor cracked under its weight. Old fluorescent lights flickered overhead. Something electric popped in the ceiling. "Brackett," I shouted. "You said these things weren't supposed to survive. How do we kill it?" She ducked behind a toppled metal cabinet. It wasn't designed to die. It was designed to dominate. "Great!" I yelled. "Thanks for the help." The Alpha slammed into the cabinet. Metal caved in like cardboard. Brackett screamed and rolled clear just before the creature crushed it entirely. The tactical guy emptied his mag again, this time into the creature's side where bone gave way to softer scales. 3 rounds sank in. Blood oozed out, dark, thick, almost jelly-like. The Alpha whipped its head around so fast the air whistled. Its jaws opened wide, and it took half the tactical guy's arm off in one bite. He fell, screaming. Blood sprayed from the stump where his elbow used to be. The Alpha didn't stop. It clamped down again, this time on his shoulder. Teeth punched through muscle and clavicle with wet cracks. The man's scream turned into a gurgle as his lung collapsed. The Alpha shook him once, hard. His neck snapped. The body went limp. The creature spat him aside and turned back toward us. Blood dripped from its jaws in thick ropes. Mars gagged. "Oh God." "Don't look at it," I barked. Too late. The creature pivoted toward him. Brackett grabbed my sleeve. "Riley, listen. There's a manual catalyst valve in the back. It triggers a containment burn if the incinerators still work." "You can say, blow it up, you know," I said. "It won't blow," she said. "It will sterilize. Temperature over 2,000 degrees. If the animals bred here, if anything spread, this will stop it." Mars pointed shakily at the Alpha. "And what about that?" It'll die, Brackett said. Great, Skunk said. So will we. The Alpha roared. Gator roar. Python hiss. Hog squeal. All smashed together. Wet meat rattled somewhere in its throat. It started toward us again. Where's the valve? I asked. Brackett pointed down a corridor lined with broken glass tanks. Half the lights were dead. The hallway reeked of ammonia and old death. Through there, she said. Back wall. Orange wheel. Skunk, I said. You and Mars run interference. Skunk lifted his hatchet. Interference how? Be annoying, I said. You're good at that. Mars squeaked. I'm not good at that. Too late, Skunk said. You're drafted. Brackett tightened her jaw. I'll go with you, Navarro. Figured, I said. The Alpha crouched, ready to pounce. Now, I shouted. Skunk and Mars bolted left, yelling, waving their arms, throwing whatever they could grab, metal cups, loose pipes, a clipboard, anything to draw the Alpha's attention. It turned, saw them, and charged. They dived behind a row of old lab tables as the Alpha barreled through them, flipping steel like toy blocks. Mars screamed, Why are we the distraction? 'Cause you're slower than me, Skunk yelled back. Meanwhile, Brackett and I sprinted down the corridor. Glass crunched under our boots. Shadows moved behind cracked observation windows. Small things skittering, watching. Riley, Brackett panted. Once the burn starts, we have 60 seconds to evacuate. Plenty of time, I lied. The Alpha roared again somewhere behind us. Concrete shook. Move, I told her. Move now. We hit the final chamber. A round concrete vault. Burners along the walls. Big incinerator pipes overhead. A massive orange valve sat against the far wall, half rusted. The room was hot, too hot. Something had been warming up. Brackett ran to the valve and grabbed it. It barely budged. Help me, she gasped. I joined her. Together we forced it 1 inch, then another. Metal groaned. The whole facility shuddered. Behind us, something scraped the floor. I turned. A python, not the Alpha, just a big one, 15 feet at least, ribs already flaring out like spider legs. It crawled toward Brackett, slow but hungry. Riley, she whispered. Keep turning, I said. The python lunged. I grabbed a steel pole from the floor and slammed it into the python's mouth. Its fangs scraped metal. Ribs stabbed at me, slicing my arm and side. I drove the pole deeper, forcing its jaw open. Brackett twisted the valve one last time. Clank. The facility lights flared red. A loud warning alarm blared overhead. Containment burn initiated. Evacuate immediately. Go, I yelled. Brackett ran. I shoved the pole downward, smashing the python's skull against the concrete. Bones cracked. Blood sprayed. I turned to run. The Alpha blocked the doorway. Its head scraped the frame as it ducked into the room. Blood dripped off its jaws. Maybe Skunk's, maybe Mars's. It locked eyes with me. I didn't breathe. Behind it, the burners in the walls ignited, blue fire licking out as the temperature began to rise. Riley, Brackett screamed from down the hall. Come on! Couldn't. The Alpha lunged. I dove aside. Its jaw snapped down, ripping a metal grate out of the floor. Sparks scattered. It swung again, python limbs bracing with sickening crunches. The room was getting hotter, painfully hot. I scanned fast. Pipes overhead, loose wiring, a hanging fuel tank still half full. Yeah, that'll do. Come on then, I muttered. Let's end this. The Alpha lunged again. I ran toward it. It opened its jaws wide enough to swallow half my torso. At the last second, I slid under it, shoulder first across the burning hot concrete, and jammed the steel pole into its throat, wedging its jaws open. It choked, thrashing, limbs stabbing the floor. I scrambled up the opposite side, grabbed the loose fuel tank cord, and ripped. Fuel rained down onto the Alpha. Brackett shouted from somewhere behind me, "Riley, move!" I ran. The Alpha tore the pole free and charged after me, slipping in the spreading fuel, roaring in pure fury. I threw myself through the doorway. Brackett grabbed my arm, and the burners hit the fuel. The explosion wasn't cinematic. It was ugly. A pressure wave slammed into our backs as fire swallowed the room. The Alpha's roar turned into a wet, choking scream. The facility walls glowed bright through the smoke. The heat chased us down the hall. "Go!" I yelled. We sprinted through the lab, past shattered tanks, past charred bone, past whatever horrors Evergenics left behind. At the entrance, Skunk appeared, coated in mud and blood. "Move your asses!" he shouted. Mars stumbled behind him, still filming despite everything. We burst out into the swamp air as the entire wetlands lab bloomed into a furnace behind us. The heat wave rolled over us. Birds took off in terrified flocks. A massive plume of black smoke rose where the lab used to be. Metal screamed as the roof collapsed inward. Then silence. Real silence. For the first time all day. We sat on a patch of high ground while the fire burned itself out. Mars wiped his lens. Did we just kill it? Brackett stared at the smoke, hollow, limp, like someone pulled the last support beam out of her spine. "Yes," she said. "The Alpha, at least." Skunk spat. "Hope that thing cooks for an hour." I stared at the burning ruin. "It's not over," I said quietly. Brackett nodded. "No, it isn't." "Why?" Mars asked. She looked at me, then at the swamp. "Because everything in there was breeding." Mars swallowed. "And now it's dead." "No," Brackett said. "The Alpha was in the lab, not the others." Mars paled. "Others?" She nodded once. "They were out here, learning, hunting, spreading." The swamp around us rustled, low and slow, like something moving beneath the waterline. I stood. "We need to move. Now." "The boat's a mile west," Skunk said. "Can we make it?" Mars asked. "We're gonna have to," I said. We started walking. The sun was setting. Shadows stretched long across the water. The sawgrass whispered. Behind us, something splashed. Then another splash. Closer. "Don't run," I said. "Just keep moving." We picked up the pace. The water to our left rippled. A shape glided under the surface, ribs flaring. "Riley," Mars's voice shook. "I know," I said. "Keep going." We were 50 yards from the boat when they hit us. Two pythons, coming from opposite sides. Skunk swung his hatchet, caught one across the head. It recoiled, hissing. The other lunged at Mars. He screamed and stumbled back. The snake's jaws clamped down on his calf, ribs stabbed through his thigh, pinning him to the mud. "No!" I yelled. I grabbed the push pole and swung, hard. The snake's skull cracked but didn't let go. Mars clawed at the ground. Blood poured from the puncture wounds. His camera hit the mud, still recording. The snake pulled, dragging him toward the water. "Riley, help me," he screamed. I lunged forward, grabbed his arm, pulled. The snake was stronger. Another shape rose from the water behind him, a gator, eyes glowing red. "Mars, let go of the camera," I yelled. "I can't." The gator lunged. Its jaws closed around Mars's shoulder and chest. Ribs snapped like kindling. Blood sprayed across my face. Mars's eyes went wide. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. The gator shook him once, hard. His body folded. The snake released, and together they dragged him under. Bubbles rose thick and red. His camera sat on the bank. Lens pointed at the water, still recording his final scream. I stood there, covered in his blood, shaking. Skunk grabbed my arm. "Riley, we gotta go." I looked down at the camera. "Leave it," he said. "No." I grabbed it, wiped the lens, and ran. We hit the boat 30 seconds later. I fired the engine without waiting for anyone to sit. Skunk fell into the seat as we launched. Brackett held onto the rail, face blank. I didn't look back. Not at the smoke. Not at the water. Not at where Mars died. I just drove. Epilogue. 2 weeks later, Sugar Marina, sunset. I tied off the airboat after my final run. The tourists were chatty and clueless. Nothing new. Mars anonymous footage from that day went viral. Brackett vanished. Evergenics wiped her from the map. The sheriff's report called everything animal activity. Nobody believed them. The swamp stayed quiet for 2 weeks. Too quiet. I walked down the dock, boots hitting planks one by one. Something moved near the shoreline. A shape slid up onto the bank, small, maybe 3 feet long. A juvenile python. Normal pattern, normal size. But when it paused, its ribs shifted, 4 of them pushing outward like tiny white legs. It looked at me. Then it skittered into the sawgrass. Not slithered. Skittered. I exhaled slow. "Yeah," I whispered. "Figures." Something strange was happening to the animals in the Everglades, and it wasn't stopping. Folklore note. The Seminole and Nakoski peoples have lived in the Everglades for generations, long before settlers, long before scientists, long before anyone thought they could improve on what already existed. They understood something the rest of us forgot. The swamp isn't a place you control. It's a place that tolerates you, if you're respectful, if you take only what you need, if you leave the balance alone. There are old stories about what happens when that balance breaks. Stories about animals that change, that learn, that remember. The elders used to say the swamp has a memory, that it keeps track of every scar, every poison dumped in the water, every species brought in from somewhere else, every time someone decided nature needed fixing. And when the swamp remembers, it teaches back, not with storms, not with floods, with teeth. The warning was always the same. You don't play God with a place that's older than God. You don't teach predators new ways to hunt. You don't assume you're smarter than 1,000,000 years of evolution. Because the swamp doesn't forgive. It adapts. And now, in the backwaters where the tourists don't go, where the rangers stopped patrolling, where the old signs lean crooked and half-sunk, something new is learning. The pythons walk on ribs. The gators hunt in packs. The hogs wear armor. And the next generation is already breeding. The Seminole were right. The land remembers. And it's hungry. Well, boys and ghouls, that wraps up another terrorific tale from the vault. Oh, poor Riley. Tried so hard, bless her heart. So sad, too bad. Thought she could save everyone. Thought killing the alpha would end it. But some things don't end when the monster dies. Some things are already spreading, already breeding, already waiting in the sawgrass for the next boat to drift too close. And Mars? Well, he got his viral footage. Just didn't live to see the views roll in. Just how we love it. If this story crawled under your skin the right way, hit that subscribe button. New creature features drop every day at 8 p.m. Central, and trust me, tomorrow's even nastier. Leave a like if you'll never look at the Everglades the same way again, and drop a comment. Where are you watching from? What would you do if the animals in your backyard started evolving? I'm always hunting for the next nightmare. Remember, when corporate science meets Mother Nature, the house always wins. And in the swamp, the house has teeth. Until next time, kiddies, keep your fires burning and your eyes on the water. This has been your Late Night Creature Feature. I'm Mr. Wendigo, and the swamp is always waiting.